My history: I lived in Korea for 31 years. Then I lived in the United States for 25 years and have been living in Kenya for 24 years. Life is like a foggy path, and I have been on a pilgrim's journey for 80 years. I immigrated to the United States in 1975. I left my family in Korea and came alone, staying in boarding houses and working at a gas station called K Service on Northern Boulevard, 126th Street. One day, when I entered my boarding room, I noticed something strange. My roommate, Teacher Yoon, had invited his elder brother, who was a pastor and an Om missionary from Washington, to stay with us for the night. Intrigued by the situation, I listened to his fascinating missionary stories, like something out of a James Bond movie, about delivering the gospel in communist countries and facing death with God's intervention.
While working at a gas station, I pondered on how I could assist missionaries. Then, by God's grace, wisdom came to me. I decided to organize prayer meetings. However, I faced the challenge of gathering participants. But once again, God granted me wisdom. Look among the customers. So, I approached Christian customers one by one, seeking those interested in missions. Initially, we had 5 people attending, then 10, and eventually over 20. With the growing number, we needed a dedicated space for prayer. So we bought a 20-foot container and turned it into a mission prayer room at the corner of our gas station. Every month, we collected $100 from each attendee as a contribution to support missionaries sent from the United States. Starting with 1.5 generation missionaries such as missionaries Yongjong Cho, Sangmuk Park, Youngil Kim, Byungwa Yang. Over the following 10 years, the increase in immigration led to the establishment of around 350 churches in New York and New Jersey by the 1990s. As a result, several supporting churches for missionaries emerged, focusing on individual church missions. Inspired by this, Hallelujah World Mission aimed to identify the specific needs of missionaries in the field and provide assistance. Thus, 2 representatives, including myself, embarked on a month-long exploration of the Philippines, Thailand, and Bangladesh. Although entering Bangladesh was challenging, I later realized that God had called someone like me to become a missionary. Witnessing the miserable lives of the people in Bangladesh, an overwhelming sense of gratitude spontaneously poured out of me. Even though I lived comfortably in the United States and complained when things didn't go my way, and even exhibited arrogance due to the 10 billion won lifestyle, God, by His grace, allowed someone like me to be born there and compelled me to live differently. Overwhelmed with gratitude, I prayed right then and there, God, please forgive my arrogance. From now on, no matter what happens, I promise to dedicate 1 month each year to go to the mission field and help missionaries. After completing the visits to the 3 countries, I returned to the United States. The prayer requests of the missionaries serving in the Philippines, Thailand, and Bangladesh were similar, as if it had been coordinated: send people to us, send workers to us, send fellow laborers to us. I believed that the most challenging aspect of mission work was financial issues, but it turned out to be something else. So, every morning, I prayed with the prayer requests of the missionaries in mind. 1 week passed, and as I prayed one day, suddenly, in a hazy state between sleep and wakefulness, a big hand appeared and pointed at me, saying, "You go." At first, I was confused and doubted myself, so I ignored it. But the next day, the same big hand appeared, pointing at me again and saying, "You go." In response, I fervently prayed, wondering if I was just imagining things. How could it be? I'm not a pastor, just an ordinary believer. Moreover, I had established my business and my children were about to go to college. It seemed impossible, so I dismissed it as nonsense. However, when the big hand appeared for the 3rd time, pointing at me, I became serious. From that moment on, all I could see was the mission field, and my business took a back seat. It was then that God ignited a passion for missions within me. So, I let go of everything and started preparing to answer God's call, which led me to Kenya in Africa, the place God had revealed to me. I was 55 years old at that time, and I wondered what kind of ministry I could engage in. As I contemplated, I decided to pursue research ministry. To do that, I needed to take photos, shoot videos, learn video editing, and work with computers. However, I was not tech-savvy. So, I decided to learn photography and videography and went to school for that purpose. But then I found out that it would take 2 years to study just photography, so I gave up. But then, my father gave me wisdom. He said, "Open a photography studio." Yes, a photography studio would allow me to do both photography and videography and learn them simultaneously. So, without hesitation, I opened Hallelujah Video Photography Studio in front of the Flushing Municipal parking lot, which was a great location. Wedding photography was a good source of income for the studio. However, many weddings in New York were held on Sundays, and since I didn't work on Sundays, I had no customers. I couldn't even pay the monthly rent. But one day, a groom and bride who were getting married on a weekday came to me, and I ended up signing my first wedding photography contract. However, I had a dilemma. I had never taken wedding photos before, so I worried about how it would turn out. While I was praying and pondering, a customer came to have their ID photo taken. This person was a regular customer at Hallelujah Auto Repair Shop, and they asked me what had happened to me. So, I told them the story, and they said, "Well, even so, I won't ruin other people's wedding photos. Don't worry," and they smiled. They then told me that there was a Spanish inspiration, who had been running a photography studio for 18 years next to our shop in Brooklyn. They suggested that I go and discuss it with that person. So, I went to see them the next day and shared my story. They looked at me with strange eyes for a while and then asked when the wedding was. I said it was on the 15th of the following month, and they promised to help and said they would go. And so, on the wedding day, they came in the morning. The first thing they said to me was, "If you shoot the way you want, I will take amazing pictures right next to you, so don't worry." So, while my wife helped pose the bride and groom, I took photos my way. I thought I was a real photographer, only to realize that the person next to me was the real deal, capturing incredible shots. Thanks to that Spanish men's inspiration, I learned photography properly. Then, to learn video editing, I visited the annual Photography and Video Equipment Show in Manhattan. While browsing, I came across an exciting video editing machine. Photos were flying, scenes were transitioning just like in movies. I asked about the price, and they told me it was $12,000. However, they also mentioned that they would sell it for $7,000 after the show ended. Right then and there, I made a deal to buy the machine. I displayed the video toaster in the studio and tried to figure it out by reading. Being digitally illiterate, I knew I had to learn computers, but I couldn't easily learn them. So, I prayed. God provided personal instructors for photography and video editing, and I learned them well. Now, I needed a personal instructor for computers. Given my current situation, I couldn't attend a computer academy, could I? Please send me a personal instructor. If I can learn just that, I will go to Kenya. I had bought a computer for the photography studio and prayed daily. Then one day, a customer came in to have their ID photo taken, and they introduced the person accompanying them. This person had arrived from Korea just a month ago. In Korea, they gathered teachers who specialized in teaching computers and came to the United States to research computers. My heart skipped a beat. So, I held onto them and explained my situation. I pleaded that I needed to learn it and asked them to teach me. But it didn't work out. They said they were fully booked. They taught at Edelcom Computer Academy from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day and offered private tutoring from 7 to 10 p.m. However, they said they could make time in the morning. They agreed to teach me from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. and then I would provide breakfast at my home before I went to work at Edelcom Academy. That's how I learned computers through private instruction. In this way, I learned photography, video editing, and computers through 2 years of private tutoring and prepared to go to the mission field. Believing in Jesus means believing in his sacrificial suffering, pain, and shame for my sins, his crucifixion, and resurrection. I have put everything on top of that belief, considering it as giving up everything for his sake. From that moment, miracles started happening in my life. It is difficult when I try to do things my way, according to my plans, and based on my blueprint. In missions, there are people who go for a long time, others who go for a short time, and some who serve from their current position. All of these are necessary. However, the mindset can vary. Some people do things according to their own thoughts, plans, and blueprints, while others surrender everything to Jesus and follow his lead. Surrendering to Jesus is not easy. It may seem foolish, inadequate, and foolish to others. However, as I reflect on my 24 years of ministry experience, there have been moments when God has done things that I couldn't believe. One or two instances might be dismissed as coincidences, but these extraordinary events have continued to happen throughout those 24 years. Are they all just coincidences? For us Christians, there is no such thing as coincidence, but, in sermons Bible, preaching. When we trust and surrender to Jesus without questioning or doubting, he works in our lives. Just like when we board an airplane for a trip, do we question or investigate who the pilot is? And whether the safety checks have been done? When going on a mission, financial do. A senior missionary cannot rely on physical strength. A senior missionary cannot move quickly. A senior missionary needs time to rest and take medication. A senior missionary needs regular exercise. A senior missionary needs meals at designated times. A senior missionary cannot engage in prolonged work at once. A senior missionary cannot work independently. Therefore, they need to collaborate with local missionaries who are already engaged in the mission work. In that case, they don't need a significant amount of missionary funds as the basic necessities are provided by the local missionaries. They share accommodations and vehicles with the local missionaries in my case. So, they only require living expenses and a small amount for missionary work. If they come from the United States, there is no financial burden. They can also travel back and forth easily. Hence, they can stay for a short term of 3 to 6 months or a medium term of 1 to 2 years. Even though it's a short period, their missionary work can have a significant impact. Therefore, it's important for senior missionary leaders to conduct a preliminary survey. Many people say they cannot come because of the distance. Think about the missionaries who came to our land of Korea. They traveled on a ship for 2 to 3 months and preached the gospel to us without airplanes or cars. God may ask, is that too far to travel 15 hours a day? Some may say they can't go because the plane ticket is too expensive. Yes, it may be expensive to go longer than other mission destinations, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to witness the marvelous, mysterious, and exquisite mission field that God has prepared and to share the gospel of life. If the round-trip plane ticket costs $1,200 or $1,500 and you think it's too expensive, what do you think God will think? He might ask, I am helping you for your entire life, and you find $1,500 to visit my workplace difficult? Today, this is as far as it goes. Thank you.